What's up, Smart Homers? My name's Aaron, and in this video, I want to show you a bunch of different tools that I use regularly in my DIY projects. By the end of this video, I'm hoping that you'll have seen some tools that you've never thought of using before for your projects, and even have some suggestions for me for tools that I could be using. It's been my mission for the past couple of months to work on organization and design of my workbench so that the tools I need are right at hand and they each have their own spot. So in this video, I want to show you the tools that made the cut, the ones that I keep coming back to for DIY projects. I'll also show you how I've organized them on my pegboard and with custom 3D printed solutions that I think you're going to find pretty satisfying. As always, I'll leave links to all these tools in the description if you're looking to try some of them out. For all of my tools, I've tried to go with a white theme where possible, and in some cases I've even painted or vinyl wrapped them to give them all a similar look. This prevents your eyes from getting hit with a barrage of colors when you're looking for a tool, and each of these tools stands out nicely against the black pegboard. I think super bright tools of all different colors can subliminally stress me out, and a nice color scheme to the tools can really bring some calmness to the chaos. The first thing I want to mention is not white actually, but it's my brand new 3D printer from Creality, and this is the Ender 3 V3 Plus. Creality sent this thing to me to test out, and I have to say that this thing is a huge upgrade from my previous printer, the Ender 3 V2. It's a plus-sized Core XZ printer, meaning that it's still a bed slinger, but only in the Y-axis, while the X and Z axes are handled by the hot end. The X and Z axes are linked with a belt drive system, so it means movements can be super smooth when making organic shaped prints. The belts are tensioned automatically, eliminating some maintenance. The name Plus is given to it because it has a 300 by 300 build plate with 330 millimeters of height, which massively increases the maximum part size from my old printer. This has been really handy for some prints that I'm going to show you in a bit. Probably my favorite thing about this printer is how insanely fast it is. It has a maximum speed of 600 millimeters per second, which has sped up my larger prints tremendously. I have noticed that prints are cleaner if I reduce the speed on this thing, but still it is so fast. Prints that would take 5 hours on my old printer are taking 2 on this one. One thing you have to keep in mind though with this printer and other high-speed printers like this is that you need special high-speed filament, and the Hyper PLA that Creality makes is a really great option. One other note, kind of a bummer, it's running Clipper-based firmware, so it won't work with Octoprint, and I haven't found a way yet to connect it to Home Assistant. While we're talking printers, let me show you 2 other printers that I'm using, and these things are pretty cool too. This next one was sent to me by Anchor Make to test out, and so far, I'm very impressed. It's called the M5, and it has a build plate size of 235 by 235 by 250, with a max print speed of 500 millimeters per second, which is also extremely fast. It's a mid-tier printer targeted towards beginners, I think, but it's performed pretty well for me. I'm loving using it for whipping up little prints while the big girl is hard at work. The frame of the M5 is made of an aluminum alloy, which gives it a super solid and clean feel to it, and the assembly is the easiest of any printer that I've ever set up. This thing also has a camera built into it, and while you can do time lapses with it, it's actually an AI camera, and it's supposed to be able to detect whether there's a problem with your print and stop the print before you make a huge mess. I haven't really had any problems with any of my prints so far, so I don't know how well that really works. This thing is auto bed leveling, and it's really a plug-in and go type machine, although it still is a bed slinger. The only thing I have against this thing is that it doesn't work with Octoprint, although there have been some efforts by people in the Home Assistant community to get this thing working with Home Assistant, so I hope to see that in the future. Okay, my third printer and my absolute favorite printer that I've ever used is one that my wife surprised me with on our anniversary this past year, and that is the Bamboo P1S, and specifically the Bamboo P1S combo, which comes with their multicolor AMS unit. I really wanted this one specifically for multicolor prints because it has this AMS, the automatic material system, which allows you to switch super easily between filament colors mid-print. The slicer allows you to paint the color you want on the model you're going to print, and then the printer will print it. This thing is the bomb. Like the Anchor Make, it has a printing speed of 500 millimeters per second maximum, but what impresses me about this thing is the insane accuracy. Every single print coming off this thing looks super clean, and there's so little cleanup that I have to do on the prints that come out of it. Coolest of all though, this thing can be connected to Home Assistant via a third-party integration, although it does use the Bamboo cloud. If you guys want to see a dedicated video on how this Bamboo printer connects to Home Assistant and all the different entities that you can see in Home Assistant from it, let me know in the comments. Okay, so on the subject of 3D printing, I picked up this 3D pen on Prime Day, and it's not as gimmicky as you might think. It's really useful for filling in defects or voids in prints. There are a lot of tools out there for subtractive work when it comes to 3D prints, but very few for additive work. Get yourself a metal putty knife and you can use this pen to fill holes or cracks, saving otherwise failed prints. All you gotta do is feed the 1.75mm filament into it, set the temperature, and then start printing. You can even set the variable extrusion speed to whatever is the most comfortable for you. It's a pretty cool little tool and I've used it a few times, but we'll see how much I end up using it long term. A lot of times you can get stringy prints where there are little strings of filament going across gaps in your print. And while a lot of times this is caused by filament that isn't dried out properly, a little stringing is inevitable. A torch can be really handy for removing these strings, lightly blasting your part with the heat to shrivel the strings to nothing. It can also clean up light scratches on the surface of your print, which is cool too. I got this one for looks, and while I do like the feel of it in my hand, I actually think this other one is better for the price, as it comes in a 2-pack. You'll need to get some butane refill bottles though as well, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can end up using a lot of butane. Another tool I have hanging up are these flat cutters. They come with the printer, but I also picked up this other pair because I've used the Top brand in the past and they're pretty good. And also these ones are white. These are really useful for little trims on your 3D prints, cutting filament to push into your extruder, and even cutting out whole chunks of your prints. Speaking of cleaning up prints though, a tool that I never even knew existed, but now is in every print use almost, is a Debur tool. They're pretty much a handle with a swiveling sickle-shaped blade that is super useful for removing burrs and sharp corners from your prints. If you're still using a utility knife or a box cutter knife to do this, you're doing it wrong and you're gonna get yourself cut. You do have to be careful with these because they're still very sharp, but they are safer than a box cutter or something like that, and they allow you to make very even trims, especially the edges of your print's first layer. Another essential is a set of digital calipers. And while they don't have to be as fancy as mine, I've been using these Starrett 799 calipers at my day job as an engineer for years. They make measuring and drawing up prototypes super quick, and they give you the ability to switch between freedom units and metric units extremely easily. You may not know this, but they actually have 3 different measurement methods in one: external width, internal width, and depth. And this makes it so simple to get the dimensions of a part without a lot of hassle. Another useful tool that I use for a lot of my projects is a stainless steel rule. Yes, you can use a plastic ruler, but I prefer a high quality flexible steel scale for taking measurements where a set of calipers won't work. And the quality of this one is really great. This is another tool I've been using at my day job for a long time, and it's really held up. One thing about it that's pretty cool is that it's magnetic, so you can use magnets to hold things in place against it to measure them properly. Next, we have an X-Acto knife, and these can be used for cleaning up prints, but you gotta be careful. But I actually got this one for a specific reason: vinyl wrapping. They're really handy for this because with vinyl wrapping, you need to cut along edges of things that you're wrapping, and the small blade is very suitable for this. You may see some vinyl wrapping in a future video. When you're doing 3D printing and other DIY projects, you find yourself creating a little bit of a mess and needing a handheld vac pretty often. This Xiaomi vacuum has been great for this use. Like most of the powered hand tools that I'm using in this video, this thing is USB-C rechargeable, which is really nice. It has 2 suction settings, and the high setting is plenty powerful to pick up print scraps, dust, wire shielding pieces, and it makes it super easy to quickly clean up my bench top. It has a small dust reservoir that's simple to clean out and dump right in the garbage every once in a while. We've covered suction, but what about blowing? Enter the air blaster. This is important for cleaning dust off your keyboard, PC, etc., and has a decent amount of power. It's also USB-C rechargeable, but the battery lasts quite a while. Since I wanted all of my tools where possible to be USB-C rechargeable, I was on the hunt for a good screw gun that would satisfy that requirement. I finally found this WorkPro screw gun, and it has a lot more torque than I thought. The battery life is decent for such a compact screw gun as well, and while it's not a replacement for a larger standard screw gun, it's great for most indoor projects. Similar to the screw gun, it's also nice to have a larger electric screwdriver. This is for cases where you don't want the pistol grip handle. This one from WorkPro is also great. It comes with a bunch of different bits, and I made a magnetic storage system for them, which will be super useful for quickly retrieving them. The driver has a decent amount of torque, and you really have to hold on to it if you're driving a larger size screw because it can twist right out of your hand. If you're into the kind of DIY and electronics projects that I'm into, you're going to need to get yourself a small electric screwdriver for small electronic screws, like for screw terminals and things like that. There are actually two different ones I recommend, so I'll show you them both. The first is the Xiaomi WowStick 1F, and it's a classic aluminum body driver with a few different sets of bits and a decent battery life. The max torque on this thing isn't super high, but that's typical for small electronic drivers like this. It has an LED ring at one end, which is really nice for providing a little extra visibility when you're working with small screws. And the only thing I don't like about it is that it's micro USB rechargeable rather than Type-C. The next one is the Fantic E1, which comes in white and has similar features to the WowStick. What I like better about it is that it's Type-C rechargeable and that it has a much nicer bit holder case if you're looking to make it portable. It makes it nice for a portable driver, but it's also just easier to open. I'll probably develop my own bit storage for this thing in the future, but for now, I really like this one. Another tool that's been very helpful for a lot of my projects is the Hot Glue Gun, and specifically a hot glue gun that is battery powered, USB rechargeable, and has a built-in stand. This one from Hoto has been a game changer for my projects, and using different colored glues based on what I'm gluing helps the glue blend into the project, which just looks way better. Hot glue guns are underrated in my opinion, and this one looks so clean and works so well that I really have no complaints. This one is manual, meaning it squeezes the glue out with the mechanical squeeze of the trigger, but they also have a more expensive electric one, which has a motor that pumps the glue out rather than just the mechanical squeezing of the trigger. It even has automatic feed if you want a continuous flow of glue. I'll leave a link to the glue sticks as well that I'm using, which are these white ones that I really like. Fairly often, I end up needing a tape measure in my projects, so I was looking for one that fit all my requirements. I think I found the perfect one. Not only does it measure in freedom units and metric units, but it has a little LED light that shines on the tape so you can see it in dark spaces. Unfortunately, it's got a micro USB charging point rather than Type-C, but I think the high contrast tape and the LED light make up for that. It's self-locking with a nice smooth thumb button for a release, and I also like that it has markings on the underside so you can read it from both the top and the bottom. Nice feature. Next, we have my 8-inch titanium Fisker scissors, which I find make super clean cuts and are very comfortable to hold. Not much more to say about these, but they're a solid option if you're looking for a white pair of scissors. I have a larger set of pliers for things I'm doing in my garage, but for these smaller projects, I wanted a set of pliers that would fit my needs. I found the set of jewelry pliers on AliExpress that are decent. They have a range of different heads for different uses, and usually at least one of them will work in any given situation, so it's nice to have options. So far they've held up pretty well for me, and I especially like the long nose pliers and the right angle pliers. This one you guys might not agree with me on, but I know we have calculators on our phones, but there's nothing like a solar powered calculator to help with some quick mathematical calculations. I've been using this one recently in my 3D print design process, and I've really been liking the large buttons and display and also how lightweight it is. Nothing fancy, but it feels great to use, looks clean, and gets the job done. This WorkPro utility knife is actually part of my everyday carry, but I keep one of these at my workbench as well. Over 10 years ago, I stopped carrying a standard pocket knife and I went with a utility knife because of the thin replaceable blade, and I haven't gone back yet. You'd be surprised at all the things you can do with a simple blade like that. These Irwin wire strippers are actually some of the most useful I've ever used as well. I actually found out about them from Chris Maher, a YouTuber that does some really awesome DIY projects, and this tool has made stripping wires a breeze since it uses your squeezing action on the handle to pull the shielding off of the wire, and its jaws actually adapt to any size wire. You can even do more than one wire at once, which really speeds up the process, and this is an awesome birthday or Christmas gift for someone you love who does DIY projects. While I do have a full soldering station out in the garage, it takes up a lot of space, so I wanted to have one that was a bit smaller. This is the Pencil Pine 64. It's called the China version, but I think that means that it's a knockoff of the original by Pine 64, and that's why I have it in this red color. It's a USB-C powered soldering iron that can get up to 400 degrees Celsius, which is plenty for my projects. It heats up super fast too, so you can get to work right away. I really like how you can use it with higher wattage power bricks like this one from Anker, which makes it such a versatile tool. Another soldering iron that I just picked up, but I actually saw it on TikTok, is one by Fantic, and it's the Fantic T1. This thing is battery powered. It's not just USB powered. It is battery powered, which means you can charge it up and then you can use it with no wires. How many times have you burned yourself because you've caught the wire and tried to move it and ended up burning yourself? Or how many times have you burned the wire itself with a soldering iron because it was restricting your movements? This thing is designed really well, but it is bench top because it has this stand that needs to sit on the bench. But the stand has a little spot for storing the different soldering tips, which is really cool. And I love the feel of the actual iron itself. The fact that you can twist the knob at the back to set the temperature. It's just a really clean looking soldering iron. I haven't played with it a ton, but I would definitely recommend it. Speaking of burning yourself while soldering, you've probably done that a lot because you don't have this next tool, which is a set of helping hands. Helping hands, otherwise known as an alligator clip on a flexible arm magnetically mounted to a plate, are a must for soldering projects. They make you realize why Dr. Octopus had the coolest superpower of all. I spray painted the bright yellow plate white to make it not hurt my eyes, but you can just keep it yellow. It's always helpful to have a hot air gun for DIY projects, and I use this mainly for shrink tubing. While you technically can just heat shrink tubing with your soldering iron, the right way is with a heat gun, and having one on hand makes it super easy to do. You can also use these things for vinyl wrapping and stuff like that. This one isn't too high powered, just 300 watts, but it's perfect for what I need without being too bulky. A lot of times when I'm working on a project, there's a small feature that I'm trying to see that's just too small to see with the naked eye. In comes the microscope, and this one is by Beaver Lab. It's a simple microscope with an LED screen so you can see what you're working on. It's handy for looking at small solder joints and other things like that, and the app isn't great, but I didn't buy it for the app, just for the capabilities of the microscope itself, and I've enjoyed it so far. It's USB-C rechargeable too, so it makes it very portable. Next, I have two sets of Allen wrenches from Wera. They make expensive but high quality hex wrenches. They have a special design that features a ball end on one side for use at an angle, and their special Hex Plus profile on the other, which apparently provides better surface contact in the screw head, and it prevents stripping. They're really nice sets, especially with the color coding, and I really enjoy using them, and I think they're worth the price. Since I do a lot of different LED projects, it's nice to have a desktop power supply so that I can supply 5 volt, 12 volt, or 24 volt LED strips all from the same supply. For this, I use a variable current power supply, which allows you to vary both the voltage and current of the supply. It's also nice to know exactly how much current or voltage you're providing to your project, and you can even test the effect of too high or too low voltage in your application if you dare. I picked up some banana to DC power jack adapters so I can plug an LED controller right into the supply, and I also got some banana to alligator clips for other situations. The next tool is more for organization, but I use it so much I figured I'd include it. This P-Touch label maker by Brother is really handy for naming and labeling your tools and projects, or even leaving reminders. It came with black on white tape, but I also got some white on clear and black on clear tape for neater labeling. That's about it for that one. I also want to show you a tool that I use in my design process, and that's the Supernote Nomad by Rada. And they sent this thing to me to test out. It's an e-ink Android tablet that's very useful for jotting down notes, drawing quick sketches, and things like that. The beauty of it is that there are no distractions, no notifications, no messages, no other apps, just writing and drawing. You can buy their leather folio case, which protects it and gives it a premium feel. You can also get one of their pens, which allow for pressure-sensitive writing, making it easy to add details in drawings. I also like the replaceable battery feature, which gives me confidence I won't be throwing this away when the battery eventually goes. I use this thing constantly for jotting down dimensions, visualizing design ideas, and even just taking quick notes for later. I highly recommend some sort of e-ink tablet for this purpose because it's so much better than just using paper that you end up throwing away or that you lose. You can always come back to these notes at any time, and you can even share them or print them out. Shout out to Cam Shand, an awesome YouTuber. I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel in the description, for getting me interested in the Supernote Nomad. So all of these tools are great, but I need somewhere that I could easily store them so that they are well organized and easy to access. Like I showed in my DIY workbench video, I installed some IKEA Scottish pegboards to hang the tools on. On Thingiverse, there's a huge collection of tool mounts for the IKEA Scottish system, so I used those where I could, but where there weren't any, I designed my own. You can see how each tool fits so neatly in the appropriate spot without any risk of falling down onto the bench, but they're super easy to take down when needed. One thing I really enjoyed was making an organizer for the driver bits for my WorkPro driver. I used magnets behind the slots to keep the bits in place, and I adapted it to hang on my Scottish pegboard. Very nice. I also organized my drawers by taking a picture of them, loading that into Fusion 360, and then sketching over that picture to make cutouts for all my tools. Even with these 22-inch drawers, because of my Ender 3 V3 Plus, I can make an organizer in 2 prints on that printer, and each tool fits in nice and snug. I even made them short enough where they could be stackable, so I have the tools on top and junk trays underneath. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I know it was pretty long, but I hope it gave you some ideas for some tools that you could be using in your DIY projects. And if I'm missing some glaringly obvious tools, let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking for the right tool for the job. If you're interested in any of these tools, don't forget to check out the links in the description, because using those links doesn't cost you anymore, but helps out the channel a ton. Thanks for watching. See ya.